I'm happy to be speaking today as well as next week on happiness. I really want to invite us to explore the deep truths about happiness and joy, the natural sense of happiness that lives within us that is unconditioned. And to me, that means that a lot of what keeps us from experiencing that happiness are the stories we tell about why we can't. Are the excuses, are the things we think that are happening in our life or in the life around us that cause us to say, well, how can I possibly be happy in any way, shape, or form because of this or that or him or her or them or whatever. And so today I want to focus on a teaching story to launch us into a conversation about happiness. And next week I'm going to bring at least one book that I've worked on before that is written by a researcher who's done a lot of research on the latest awareness we have about our brain and how it takes us to be aware of certain things to continue to develop happiness. And the story that I want to start with sort of compromises the whole case of happiness. It's about a 92-year-old man. And here it is. Today's topic is 5 simple rules of happiness, as outlined by this beautiful 92-year-old wise person. The story says, a 92-year-old petite, well-poised and proud man who is fully dressed each morning by 8 o'clock with his hair fashionably coiffed and shaved perfectly, even though he is legally blind, moved to a nursing home today. His wife of 70 years recently passed away, making the move necessary. After many hours of waiting patiently in the lobby of the nursing home, he smiled sweetly when told his room was finally ready. As he maneuvered his walker to the elevator, I provided a visual description of his tiny room, including the eyelet sheets that had been hung on his window. I love it, he stated with the enthusiasm of an 8-year-old having just been presented with a puppy. Mr. Jones, you haven't even seen the room yet. Just wait. That doesn't have anything to do with it, he replied. And here's the crux. Happiness is something you decide on ahead of time. Whether I like my room or not doesn't depend on how the furniture is arranged. It's how I arrange my mind. I already decided to love it. It's a decision I make every morning when I wake up. I have a choice. I can spend the day in bed recounting the difficulty I have with the parts of my body that no longer work, or get out of bed and be thankful for the ones that do. Each day is a gift, and as long as my eyes open, I'll focus on the new day and all the happy memories I've stored away. What a beautiful attitude. And to me, this is the core of how it is we humans re-engage with the natural sense of joy and happiness that is in us. And I hear him saying, and I will tell you that even next week you're going to hear me say, we must choose it. We must choose it despite everything. We must choose it and choose it and choose it again. And today we are going to go through the 5 laws, the 5 simple rules this wonderful 92-year-old gives the person who wrote the story on how to experience happiness. Oscar Wilde said, some cause happiness wherever they go, others whenever they go. And I know that I want to be someone who can be generative of my own sense of happiness and joy, and be someone who, wherever I go, can make whatever and whomever I come in contact with feel and be inspired to engage with their own sense of happiness. And so, because I think that's what we as humans want at the core of us, I'd like to explore these 5 simple rules today. The first one he suggests is a very important one. It's free your heart from hatred. And I would include in the conversation about hatred that hatred is an umbrella concept, a result of certain habits and states of being that have to do with things like resentment and judgment, unresolved anger and resistance to finding our way through the challenges of our life individually and collectively. When we put that work off, when we allow ourselves to lollygag in an atmosphere of resentment for days, weeks, or years, or hang out in anger, or constantly feel compelled to judge and make everyone around us wrong, what is the result then is a sense of hatred and disconnect and a lack of connectivity, conscious connectivity to our own inner flowing fountain of divine light and love. We cut ourselves off. No one does it to us. We cut ourselves off. And I know, having been in this work now for almost 30 years, that I and other people have the very profound capacity to heal any resentment and judgment we have. And so what happens is we get to watch as even right now, our mind may be making up excuses. Well, she doesn't know what's gone on in my life. If she really knew what happened to me, she wouldn't be talking so freely. Because I get it's easy to say, free your heart from hatred. It's easy to say, right? So it's about recognizing that we have work to do whenever we find ourselves caught up in those feelings. That those feelings, those thoughts, that pattern is, instead of a stopping point that stops us, that we wallow in, is an invitational point. And that's really important for us to consider today as we choose to move forward in our sense of happiness. Something that I know the research shows and has shown us for a long time is that to continue to persist to live in states of resentment and judgment and righteousness is detrimental to our health and well-being at every level. It's detrimental to the cells in our body. It's detrimental to our emotional life. As a culture who really reveres life and often clings to life at all costs and often sees death as this horrible enemy we must resist at all costs, many of us are prone to be unwilling to do the work to heal ourselves of our resentments and our judgments, even though we know it's killing us. So I would say to us today that to have life and to have it more abundantly, when we find ourselves caught up in these patterns in any way, we must heed the sacred, holy invitation that they are bringing to us, to find ways into healing and wholeness, to find our way out of those experiences, because otherwise we spend our lives saying, well, I can't be happy because of what has been done to me or what was said to me or how they treated me. I can't be happy because of what's going on right now, here, there, or everywhere. I can't be happy because I have these negative feelings, when the capacity to heal the negative feelings is within us. It's within us all the time. I was pondering in my time away, and as I was thinking about this, how those negative feelings and emotions were a stopping place for me for a long time in my life. I've shared in classes, and I think a little bit here on the stage, that my childhood was full of being stopped from feeling my emotions. And don't worry, I'm not going to tell you my whole life story up here. It's just a little piece of it, but a very important piece of it. My parents were teenagers when I was born, and very challenged to raise a child. Neither of them, of course, had ever done that. And my father was especially, I would say, emotionally challenged himself, had been abused and been in an abusive family. And in his life, he just repeated the patterns that he had been taught. And what was clearly very uncomfortable from my father from the very beginning was too much emotion. And so as a baby, if I cried, I know he told me to stop it immediately. Didn't matter if I cried because I was uncomfortable or I was hungry or I was unhappy. The emotion was just, it was just too uncomfortable for him. And his only way to get free of it was to become very powerful and even sometimes verbally abusive and really stop it. And this was how he lived his life. And it wasn't just negative emotions, it was positive emotions. As I grew older, it was that if we got hurt, we were told immediately to stop crying, not to feel those feelings. If we were angry or frustrated, not allowed, stop it. And even if we were happy and joyful and having a good time and giggling and laughing, stop it. You're making too much noise. And so it became this feeling inside of me, just tamper that down. Just push that all down. Just don't. And especially if he was around, what I learned, if he was around, to be as neutral as possible. I learned to try to feel into him with my intuition as best I could and get a sense, is today an okay day to giggle or not? You know, his way of being became what controlled my emotional volume. And so this was how I was. And as my family grew and my parents eventually divorced, my father wasn't around near as much. And at first I experienced a lot of anger at him for a lot of issues. And then I began to notice that the emotions just wanted to have their way with me. I had anger and resentment towards him. I had situations in my life. Of course, I'm a teenager, hormones pouring through my body and emotions everywhere, right? And I was doing my best to keep pushing them down. And it would get so bad that if I got too emotional, I could feel the tears and I couldn't even speak. I know that's hard for you to imagine. But it was true. I couldn't even speak. And then I found this place. I found this church. And I began to be welcomed and accepted for who I was. I began to volunteer and take classes and do workshops. I began to discover me and discover my own heart, the fullness of my heart, all of its natural, inherent, little optimistic joyfulness that I've always been, as well as to discover the parts of me that sometimes want to be resentful or angry, judgment. The anger I had at my father, the anger I have at situations, I began to discover it all. I did therapy. I had friends support me. I had relationships, which are great learning tools. And eventually, yeah. Eventually, I found myself experiencing the full glory of all of my emotions and allowing myself to do that, such that now I claim that I have the gift of tears. I have reclaimed my gift of tears. And such that when I cry for any reason, I love to experience the fullness of it. I want to feel the tears rolling down my face. I want to feel the snot coming out of my nose. I don't want a Kleenex when I am crying. My sleeve will do just fine. Thank you very much. But here's what I've been getting in these years of working on this. Even though that may sound so challenging, that challenging childhood, my father gave me the greatest gift of my life. Because when I have negative emotion, I feel happy at the same time. Because I feel that this is the full spectrum of being human, of being God expressed as a human being. We are blessed. We are blessed to have such a grand heart and an emotional body that allows us to feel the heights of the greatest joys of life and the challenge of watching things occur on our planet that cause us sadness. These things are not cause to then stop ourselves from feeling our happiness. They then become feedback to say, wow, I've really got a lot of judgment about that, or I'm feeling huge resentment, or I have not forgiven that person. And that feedback shows me myself in all of my glory, such that I can then say, what must I do to let this go? To find my balance. If I had continued that habit of never seeing it, pushing it aside, or continued to go out into the world and rage at everything I was angry about, I could be dead. My life could not be very functional. And that's what's happening to many people on our planet. We are so prone to, I just want to feel happy, 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 that we discount even the negative emotionality, and that discount is creating this gigantic shadow and keeping us from being functional even in the negative emotionality. It has its place in our life, in our world, in our hearts. And it is also a contributor to be able to dance with it and move through it such that we find and discover and can feel the happiness of the full measure of being a human godling. That's what we're here to do. That's who we're here to be. And so when we feel that hatred rise, when we feel that resentment rise, the pathway to happiness is about saying, what must I do to find my balance? What is this showing me? How can I let go? How can I forgive? How can I begin to move forward in a way that allows me to be a healing presence for myself, for my family and friends, and for my fellow human beings on this planet? That leads us back to our natural joy and happiness. I love what Rumi says in his poem called The Guest House. He says, this being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Beautiful, Rumi, beautiful. The second rule for happiness that our wonderful 92-year-old friend gives us is free your mind from worries. E. Stanley Jones says, worry is advanced interest you pay on tomorrow's problems, and you may go bankrupt worrying about the things that never come. Worry just doesn't serve us. It does not support us in our journey towards happiness. Worry is a door that we close. The more we indulge in it, we close the door on our ability to feel happy, but also to feel functional, to feel as though we can actually do something to make shifts, to move forward, because happiness stops us in our track. It is a habit of mind that we have to learn to break in some way, shape, or form. And so the pathway towards that is to recognize and honor, I tend to be a worrywart. I choose to stop worrying because I get and I accept that worry does not support me in any way, shape, or form. And so I have to sometimes do a little cognitive work. And I personally do that. If I start to worry, I often will catch myself and I will tell myself, what would I rather be thinking about? And so I will shift my awareness to, what if it worked out fine? I will shift my awareness to thinking about something beautiful, or thinking about someone else that I love, or I will be thinking about, what if they figure it out and I didn't even need to worry about it. I will get up and move around. I will do something to disrupt the pattern, because I understand and get that it's a habit of mine that just doesn't serve. My husband Ken reminded me of a movie about the Bridge of Spies, where one of the characters was in jail and his attorney, played by Tom Hanks, kept saying, well, aren't you worried that such and such will happen? And the cute little man would say, would it help? And I think Ken was right and reminded me of that, because it doesn't help. Worry doesn't help. Our founder, Ernest Holmes, says worry is misplaced prayer. Right? If our thoughts are creative, when we indulge in worry thoughts about something, we are contributing prayers of worry to that person, situation, or condition. Not very functional, not leading us to happiness. So I understand that is a beautiful, important rule. He also says, rule number 3, live simply. I think this one is a lot about we make finding our happiness so complicated. We have all these elaborate stories sometimes about, well, I could be happy if that hadn't have happened, or if that would happen, or if they would have just said, or if they would just do, or maybe I will be happy when this occurs and when that happens, when I finally get kids, when the kids finally move out of the house, when I finally get married, when I finally get divorced, I'll be happy when I win the lottery, then I could be happy, right? So we have all these stories about pushing it away, when all the while, simple living to me is about the simple pleasures that can be found in our everyday living. And being away for a while, I found myself being able to engage in some of those and asking myself, why don't I do that in my regular life? My story, I don't have time. That's just not true. I have time to go out and stand in the grass barefoot. Maybe not during December, but yeah. I have time to go watch the sunset. I have time to just be still and just feel the breeze blowing amongst the trees. I have time to play some music that makes me feel great. I have time to talk with people and to look people in the eye. I have time to have meaningful conversations. I have time to hear people's stories. I have time. One of the things I found on this break was I had time to clean and organize things. Oh, that made me so happy. I was surprised at how happy that made me feel. The clarity of that. And so happiness can be very simple if we let ourselves have it. Rule number 4, big one, big important one that I practiced a lot on this time away. Again, another one that's easy to say, love more. I think we probably get at an intuitive level that allowing love to shine through us is a doorway into happiness. But we're challenged because we've got all these other rules and things in our mind. I'll be happy wins, or we've got these resentments and angers. And yet love and choosing love and being with love is so important. I'm about to teach the financial freedom class, and I love the tagline of the class. It says, duplicating the nature of God in your financial life. And what I think we are doing in our lives when we're courting and allowing happiness to have its way with us is that we are duplicating the nature of God in our beingness. We're letting it have its way through us. And I kept seeing in my meditation time like this aperture of a camera that just opens, and the wider it opens, the more love flows out of us. But I had one day as I was meditating, which I did a lot, I've had transcendent experiences in my life that, quite frankly, often surprised me. Came upon me in moments where I was like feeling the love of the universe and the oneness of it all. And so I went into this break in my meditation times a few times, sitting on my little meditation space going, okay, I want it. Come on, God, bring it on. I want to feel the love, and I want it now. And I was pretty demanding about that. And I kept kind of having these meditations where I felt great and I felt peaceful and it felt good, but I didn't have what I was expecting, which is kind of a key to the next role we'll be talking about. But what happened one day is I was meditating and kind of going, what's wrong? Why can't I feel this? And all of a sudden, I had this vision of me standing right here on this stage. And you may have noticed by now that I have a microphone that is right here and that my voice is being amplified. Did you notice? You can actually hear me. But in this vision, I was standing on this stage giving a talk, and everything was as it is right now, and I was demanding that my voice be amplified. Please, someone turn the microphone on. Why isn't this microphone on? Hello? I want to speak. I want to express. I want the microphone on. And I was stomping my little feet, demanding that the microphone be on, looking at some of you. Make sure they're turning the microphone on. Calling out to Nathan, our wonderful sound tech, Nathan, turn the microphone on. And he was standing back there going, it's on. And you all were looking at me like I was crazy. And I thought, what is this vision all about? And the minute I kind of took a deep breath, that inner voice says, oh, my beloved, that thing you're wanting, you're in it. You can't help but be in it. It's right where you are. That love. The love that you yearn for so deeply, you're never without it. It's not like you're walking through your life and the love of God isn't present and then all of a sudden it is. It's always there. And it caused me to go, even when I'm looking at something I don't like, yep. Even when I can't quite feel it, yep. It's always there. You're like the fish that's in the midst of the ocean, yearning for the ocean. It's there. So when this rule says love more, it's about opening and letting that love out. Because after that vision, the aperture opened widely, and I felt it pouring out through me. And my desire then became, I want to give it away. I want everyone to have this love and to feel this love. This is what could heal the planet. And so I immediately began tearfully seeing people in my life, my family, my husband, my child, my dearest friends, my pets, my ministerial colleagues, the staff here, the board here, all the beloved practitioners, all the volunteers. I started sending love and just gratitude and just allowing it to pour forth through me. And I sent it to all y'all, as they would say. And I realized I don't even know all of you, but I could feel myself just sending love to our Mile High community, to anyone who's involved, claiming and accepting today that aperture of love is expanding and growing and unleashing itself through us as a community into our world. And I realized when I said, I don't even know everybody at Mile High, that voice said, I don't need to know you to love you. I don't have to agree with you to love you. I don't have to be the same as you to love you. I don't have to walk the same path or eat the same food or drink the same drink or walk the same walk or talk the same talk or believe the same beliefs to love you. And that's what gets in the way of us feeling happy so often, is that we are unwilling to unleash that love to all. Because in that place that's below the surface of these conversations about who's in and who's out and who's right and who's wrong is oneness. One. Yes. And those of us who will transcend, certainly at the world of effects, we have work to do. No denying that. Certainly. But part of how that work happens is that there are those of us who become committed to this deeper work of unleashing consciously what is already so and sending it forth to everyone. I sent love to every brother and sister on this planet, the good ones and the bad ones. I sent love to every world leader on this planet. I sent love to our White House. I sent love to all of our people all over the world, to every child, to everyone, because that is the way that happiness and joy and balance and vibrance and love is born out of that foundation. And each one of us, in order to claim that happiness, because when I got done with that meditation, bliss, pure bliss. I floated through my days, and I began to do that meditation every day. And I felt this sense of connectedness, this sense of engagement that was profound and powerful and magnificent. That is our work to do. And so when we get about loving more, it concludes then with the final law: expect less. My husband and I often talk about the places where we come in conflict or where we're challenged with each other or situations is because we have expectations that have to do with the word should, right? So-and-so should do this or shouldn't do that, or that shouldn't have happened or that should have happened. And spiritual maturity and effectiveness happens out of setting aside those kind of human expectations and being willing to be with what is so and move with it and speak about it and move towards what needs to happen, but not necessarily out of the expectation place, because expectation sets up right and wrong. I expected you to behave differently, so I'm right and you are wrong. Yeah, that doesn't breed happiness at all. And so we get to practice these wonderful moments of being in the moment. I'm suggesting that this week we try living from these 5 laws in our own life and see if happiness doesn't break out more. Just take a moment and right now, in terms of how much happiness is pouring through your life on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being, nah, not so much, and 10 being, I'm in bliss today, give a number. And then if you're willing, this is how we are religious science. We go out and we experiment in our lives. And we practice some or all of these laws this week. And at the end of the week, in fact, next Sunday, for those of you here, I'm probably going to begin by saying, okay, are you any higher on the scale after practicing these laws? And that's how we know if it's right or not, if it's working for us or not. We begin to practice and to do that work and discover what serves us. Our wonderful person who is in this story, our 92-year-old wisdom keeper, concludes by saying, old age is like a bank account. You withdraw from what you've put in. So my advice to you would be to deposit a lot of happiness in the bank account of memories. I thank you all for your part in filling my memory bank, for letting me love you, because I'm going to keep it up. Yay.